Talk to Joe on 0818 715 815.
Diane, good afternoon. Diane has contacted us. What happened, Diane?
Hi, Joe. So it was actually a couple of days ago. I was up in Duffy, and it was my 11-year-old son spotted a large billboard advertisement in Duffy Main Street.
Okay.
And the advert features a cartoon of a young girl butchering a lamb with the slogan, "They trust us, we butcher them." So it is by Go Vegan World. So I just want to stress, sort of first off, I suppose that I totally understand the need to raise awareness about the impact of meat consumption and the use of animal products and everything on the environment and on animal welfare. But I have to stress that I just think that it should be done with sensitivity, respect, especially when children will see the adverts.
Because these are the biggest billboards available. They're known as, there's a 48 sheet and a 64 sheet. They are extraordinarily expensive to hire, by the way. There's one, I've seen a few of them now at this stage, so there's a few of them around. And the images, they trust us, we butcher. And butcher is in blood red, them. And it's a young woman, like Goldilocks or whatever. And she has a lamb on a chopping board, and the lamb is fully intact, the head, and she is cutting the lamb, and the lamb's head looks like they're asleep, and then looking plaintively over the lamb being slaughtered or being chopped up is the sister or brother of that lamb, another little lamb up on the table. But that's the reality, isn't it, Diane?
It is.
Is it? I don't know. Are lambs killed that way? You put them up on a breadboard and you chop them up?
No, exactly. Well, so that's what I find. It's a cartoon image as well, and I find the use of the cartoon image, and also of it being a young girl, and the girl looks very vulnerable. She looks as if she's being forced, like I say, cartoon, but it's a dark cartoon.
Okay.
And it was my 11-year-old son who spotted it, and I sort of felt that it is targeted towards children, with some form of messaging sort of saying as if, we're forcing our children to slaughter animals, which is inaccurate, and it's aggressive and a little bit toxic, I would say.
And what's inaccurate about it?
Well, our children aren't butchering the animals. It's important that we educate our children on how animals are killed for our use, and I don't argue that at all. But I do find that a lot of this advertising from vegan organisations is very aggressive. And it's not done in a compassionate way, and it's not done in an educational or factual way. It is done in a way of being cruel, being aggressive and inappropriate. I mean, if you take the climate change movement as an example, they're going into schools and they're educating our children, and then our children are coming home to us. Like my kids can teach me a few things about climate change because that movement is inclusive.
So by the way, the advertising, I don't know what they do actually, but the Advertising Standards Authority of Ireland says nothing to do with us. Okay. Sandra Higgins. Sandra, good afternoon. What is
Good afternoon, Joe.
Sandra, you're going to be totally glad that this has come up, because you're going to say that the world has gone mad in a handcart killing animals.
Well, yes, and I think that this is a case of shoot the messenger. The fact is, Joe, that the vast majority of people care about other animals, care about them very deeply, but they are not vegan. And when we're not vegan, we harm and kill other animals. That's just the fact. So people are uncomfortable because our ads show a contradiction between their belief, which is that other animals matter, and their behaviour, which is, I'm going to use them anyway.
So what is the purpose of this ad? Is you want more people to go vegan?
Yeah, I want people to make the connection between, you see, you go into a supermarket and you see, dairy products, carton milk, yogurt, cheese, shrimp wrapped animal flesh. It's completely divorced from where it came from. And it came from an animal who shares our capacity to feel. So, like us, they get too hot, they get too cold, they feel pain, they feel fear, they experience joy. Lambs, for instance, want nothing more than to stay by the safety of their mother and play with their young friends. And these are the lambs that we take out of the fields and slaughter for a product that we don't need for our health, that's violent to the animals, that causes zoonotic diseases.
So if the logical conclusion of all of this is that sheep and lambs, apart from petting zoos or whatever, they would all die out, cattle would die out. There'd be no one would have any interest. You couldn't, who'd keep a cow in their back garden as a pet? All those animals would die out, wouldn't they?
They would, yeah. We'd stop breeding them for our use, so they wouldn't exist.
So they'd be extinct.
At the yes, they would.
Zoos,
they're all the wild animals are already extinct because we have domesticated the wild animals. So they're, those breeds are already.
And why did you pick that image? Because I know people who work in abattoirs. I don't know of any 12-year-old girl, or indeed boy, who works in an abattoir that takes a lamb, whacks him up onto a breadboard, and I presume gives him a smack or something to stun them because the head is still there, though they look like they're asleep in your ad, and then proceeds to knife them and cut them. I don't know of any 12-year-old girl or boy working in an abattoir. Why did you pick that person to do the dirty?
It was actually an image that an organisation called Vegan FTA had used. We usually do our own advertising.
But that doesn't. Why did they pick the image?
Well,
of the 12-year-old girl.
Well, we're not saying that she's a 12-year-old.
What age is she? Come on, I'm not stupid, Sandra. What age is the child?
She's certainly a young girl.
What age is she, Diane? Tell me, it's me, I'm being stupid. What age do you think that girl is, Diane? Be brutally honest with me. If you think she's 47, tell me.
No, she's a child, and that's exactly my point.
Do you accept, Sandra, that she's a child?
She's a young girl, but the point of the ad.
What age is she?
Sorry, I'm finding that your tone quite aggressive.
I'm sorry for it. I'm sorry, I know. Well, I don't mean to be aggressive. I'm just asking a question.
You're right. She's a young girl.
Yeah. Is she 12?
Joe, I don't know what age she is. I didn't design this particular image myself.
But you've seen it.
A young girl, but I presume the reason you're asking me what age she is that you're trying to say she's not the one who slaughtered the lamb. In more rural cultures, people often do slaughter their own animals. But all the animals we use, when you go into a supermarket and you see the lamb chops, the same lamb chops that are in that ad, they are the chopped up pieces of a baby, a young lamb between 3 and 5 months of age. And they're advertised as tender spring lamb. And the reason they're tender is because they were drinking their mother's milk not long before they were slaughtered, or they might have been weaned, unnaturally force weaned a few weeks before slaughter, so that they would eat more grain to have more flesh. It's violent. I can hear from you that you agree that it's violent. I think Diane agrees it's violent. We're not the ones who are violent by showing the ad. What we all object to is the unnecessary harm that is caused to the lamb in the ad.
Okay, and I've tweeted the ad there during the recess, and it's on @Liveline. You can see the photograph, and which is great for you. You're getting free advertising about this, which is I know rightly so. That's the debate you're hoping to generate. Sandra, who pays for these ads? They're very expensive. These spaces.
Well, yeah, we're funded by people who share our vision for a vegan world, and our aim, which is to show members of the public the contradiction between the claim that they care about other animals and our actions as non-vegans, which means that we perpetrate unconscionable violence that is stuff of nightmares.
You said I've never seen a donation page for Go Vegan. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong place. But are you saying it's not funded by any of the soya milk producers? And by the way, soya milk is much more expensive than cow's milk, as you know. To be vegan, is a middle class enterprise, because you need more money to go vegan, don't you?
That's not fair to say at all. I mean, you can buy plant milk, at a very low price in some of the large supermarkets. I don't think it's appropriate for me to name the names of them. But actually, by far the most expensive milk at all is animal milk, because not only is the dairy industry extremely harmful and violent to other animals, it's one of the greatest causes of greenhouse gas emissions, water pollution, soil pollution. It's rendering the world so that not only will we not be able to live on it, we won't be able to grow food, and the farmers themselves are going to suffer, because using animal agriculture is not sustainable. So it is in the interest of farmers to transition, and it's in the interest of your listeners to know that a vegan diet is not expensive. The components of a vegan diet, fruit, vegetables, whole grains, and plant replacements are the cheapest things that you can buy in the supermarket. And the more people go vegan...
Well, look at that another way. Say almond milk, which is expensive, and soya milk. I use soya milk in my porridge. That is expensive. I don't care what you say. I know it's expensive. I buy it.
Well, if you go into Aldi and Lidl there,
no,
you
I can't.
Can get
I'm not going. I'm supporting my little corner shop. I'm not going to a German multinational to and when you mentioned almond milk, and for example avocados, how damaging is the production of almonds and indeed avocados to the environment?
So the recent studies are showing, there was a study in the University of Oxford last year, and it analysed the diets of 55,000 individuals in the UK and Ireland as well, I think, using the food that comes from 38,000 farms in 119 countries. And it found that a plant-based diet can reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 75% and water pollution and land use by 75%.
Okay. Stay with us. Yes, stay with us, Sandra. I wanted Diane, you're leaving all the heavy lifting to me. You're the one who rang in. What do you think of what Sandra is saying?
Well, I think that the focus here is yet again on the sort of focus of why you should be vegan, and I don't have any. I understand and I'm well aware of the many factual reasons why you should support veganism, from ethical reasons, environmental, health concerns. But what isn't being addressed at all is the negative perception that this specific advert, it's cruel and it's aggressive and it's inappropriate to be using young girls in that way. And Sandra didn't even want to say that it was a young girl, but it is a young girl, and the girl looks forced, she looks tortured, she looks vulnerable,
she looks gaunt,
yeah,
depressed,
she looks, and all of those things, as if somebody, and I'm assuming the imagery is supposed to say that somebody is her parent, is forcing her to eat and kill meat. And I know that that's a natural thing, because children are born into culture and a family who do eat meat. But I just think that you're missing the point. And the point is that children need to be educated factually and not educated in an aggressive way. Because, I mean, my son, I asked him, once he was upset by it, do you want to stop eating meat? Do you not want to eat meat? And on the contrary, he now has a negative perception of vegans. He looked at that and said, why would they put something like that up there that is so vulgar?
It's like the character, actually. It's coming to me now. The character is like Cinderella.
Yeah,
isn't it?
And I'm trying to help, because I don't.
Okay, stay with us, Diane. Yeah. Adam has contacted us from County Meath. Adam, good afternoon. You're listening to Sandra. They trust us, the animals. We butcher them. What's wrong with that? That's the truth, isn't it?
Yeah. The first thing I'd like to say, Joe, is I'd love to invite Sandra out and come work with us for a couple of weeks. We're sheep farming here at home ourselves, and to be honest with you, and I maybe I'm making a false claim here. I think 90% of farmers are just sick to the teeth of this nonsense that's going on. We're no better than criminals in the country now, Joe. That's how we feel.
Have you seen this ad with Cinderella killing the lamb?
I haven't seen it myself, Joe, in fairness now. I just heard your description of it, and it's not, look at, that doesn't even bother me so much. Look at, that's a small thing. This has been going on for a long time. We're coming out of our lambing season at the minute, Joe, right? We're working over 140 hours a week. And I can tell you here now, come the end of the year, I'll have nothing out of it. Nothing. I could be in debt again the end of the year. Now, our production systems, right?
Yeah.
And fair enough, it is intensive and this, that and the other. That's drove by the consumer demand. I'd love to be out in my fields whistling Dixie with 10 or 15 sheep and not panicking about pushing them on and this, that and the other. It's not set up that way. We're meeting the consumer demand. But my main point is, I'd love to invite Sandra out to come out and work with me for a couple of weeks and see if I could change her opinion, because they're completely wrong.
Okay,
completely.
Yeah. Sandra.
I entirely agree with Adam. Yes, the farmers are meeting the consumer demand. My ad is not directed at farmers at all. I know how hard farmers work.
It's Adam's livelihood, Sandra.
Well, to be honest, Joe, that livelihood is gone. It's this. I'm pulling the pin on it, because we just can't survive at it anymore.
But I'm saying, for a lot of people, Sandra, it's their livelihood, it's their living, it's their job.
Just as Adam said, sheep farmers are some of the worst paid individuals in the country. And sheep farming is not sustainable. I actually have an appreciation for what you do, Adam, because I run a sanctuary and we have a large number of sheep, and I've often, in the early years before I had people working here, had new rescued lambs myself, and I know what it's like getting up every 4 hours to feed them just as if they were a baby.
It's torture.
It's torture.
You're just working. I'll put it to you this way. We were only chatting this morning. I weighed myself on the 20th of February, okay, just before we started lambing. And I put myself on the scales yesterday. I lost 8 kilos of weight in less than a month.
Well, because you're up at half the night and you're running around and you're...
Oh, you're running. We're doing on average...
Well, Adam, could you try... Okay, if you're not going to rear sheep, as you say, could you grow lentils? Could you grow almonds? Could you grow avocados?
This is my other problem, Joe, right? I'm not going to tell a person what they should or shouldn't be eating, and I've no issue with vegans at all. Fine, that's what you want to do, fine. Joe, the truth of the matter is, it's no better for the environment. Do you know what I mean? Our building blocks of the world is down in them invertebrates in your clay and your soil. Do you think that the lads growing the veg and the cereals and whatever, I know you have your organic growers, and I take my hat off to them, they're doing it, they're not feeding the world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but could you can you transfer to wheat and barley and maize and?
I could surely, Joe, but at a huge cost. Like straight away, you're into machinery. Do you know what I mean? Like people think that the vegan thing is lads out hoeing a field by hand and a couple of people out picking vegetables and happy days. That's not a reality. It's tractors and it's this and it's that and there's none of it. It's not. I'm not saying it's any worse, but I certainly don't think it's any better for the environment. I really don't. And especially when you get into the likes of your soya and your avocados, I'd say it'd be horrific if you went over and seen what they were doing in them countries, cutting down rainforests to grow it. Like it just baffles me. The whole thing is baffling me. It really is.
Somebody said to me, somebody saying to me there, Sandra, I said it looks like Cinderella in the ad. Maybe is it Mary that Mary had the little lamb?
No, it's not. It's not, Joe, because we didn't use that. We didn't compose that ad ourselves. Somebody very kindly lent the image. I'd like to address a couple of very important points.
I'll let you do that, Sandra, after this break. I promise, after the break.
Talk to Joe on 0818 715 815.
Sandra, you wanted to come back on a few points there to Adam. Do you think Adam should Adam change to wheat, barley?
Well, it's not even should Adam change. Adam should be paid to change, encouraged to change. There should be government programs to support the likes of Adam to change.
We're not going to be, Sandra. We're not going to be.
Well, there's, for instance, at the moment there's a seafood storage place in Donegal. There was a planning application in for it, and they found that there's no market for it anymore. So it's now being used to produce oat milk. So there's a shortage of good quality oats for oat milk in the world, and there's a huge demand for oat milk, both from vegans and people who are just on a plant-based diet. And so this is a fantastic
What happens to the leftover
farmers?
How many oats have to die for a litre of oat? What happens to
I'll tell you, Joe,
what happens to the leftover oats?
First of all, oats are not sentient beings.
I know that. I know.
They don't. They don't die.
Well, as far as we know,
we need a fraction of the land.
Now, what do we do with the leftover? That was my point. Okay, to make a litre of oat milk, you've got to crush oats. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
What happens with the leftovers?
Some people are currently using them for animal food.
You can't do that. You can't do that.
Yeah, so I think, Joe, you're probably picking the only negative aspects of oat milk production. Again, this is a strategy that's commonly used by people who feel uncomfortable about the whole idea of...
Sandra, hang on, Sandra, now. Hold your horses. I'm not uncomfortable with people. I live in a family. I'm the only one in my family who eats meat or fish. I live in a family of vegans. Okay? I live in a family of vegans, so I'm not uncomfortable. That question just came into my stupid little head. What happens to the oats after you crush them? What happens? And you say they use them for animal feed. That's the feed the purpose. You saying we shouldn't be killing the animals?
That's what I'm saying. That's not an appropriate use of them. I haven't researched it in enough detail to know, Joe. But I'm sure that there is a use for them. I'm sure they'll find something very useful to do with them. The main thing is that oat milk is significantly less damaging to humans and to the environment and to animals than animal milk.
Ireland hasn't. We as a population, we're living longer and we're drinking an awful lot of milk in Ireland. We always have. Didn't damage us that much.
But it's important that we transition to plant milk and that we no longer exploit the animals and the dairy industry. Sorry?
Adam.
Is it any better, Sandra, for the environment? I mean, I've heard figures that it takes 10 to 15 times more water to produce a litre of plant-based milk than it does dairy.
No, the opposite. The opposite is true. It's actually 75% less water pollution. I don't have the figures to hand.
Not pollution now, not water pollution. I mean to produce it.
The input.
Well, you see, as you know, Adam, yourself, one of the biggest problems, we've had droughts here in Ireland where animals were slaughtered earlier than they would have been because we didn't have enough water to give them. But we're able to keep
I agree with that, but...
Sandra, you mentioned the seafood factory in Donegal that's now doing oat milk or whatever. So are you against fishing as well?
Yes, we're against the use of other animals as objects or as resources for humans.
And are you against recreational fishing?
Yes, at the use of...
Would you ban fishing? Yeah. Okay. On the Tolka and the Grand Canal and the Loch Corrib, you ban all that fishing?
Yeah, our aim is to educate people about the fact that other animals are sentient, that they're feeling beings.
How do you educate them?
Diane.
This was my original point, that you're not educating, you're being aggressive, and I don't feel that education, it's not, because even on your website
it reads like personal opinion. It doesn't read like, I want facts. I want to know why X, Y, Z.
Actually, the website doesn't read like personal opinion. If you read it, Diane, you'll find that every single fact is referenced. Yeah, so there isn't a fact there that's opinion. Every single fact is referenced. So and we're renowned for this because we've been taken to task on several occasions and won our case that our ads are not misleading. They're not personal opinion. They're fact. So that assertion is quite incorrect.
Because there aren't young girls standing in rooms butchering.
Correct.
Traditionally, Diane, I'm very sorry, I got your name wrong. It's always the woman or the eldest daughter who prepares the dinner in the house. My mother was always here
with a nice
I know it's changed. Okay, you know the point that Diane is making. Let's not pick her up and everything. Could
I ask Sandra a question, Joe?
Yeah.
Does she agree with the use of bees coming in to pollinate crops? That's using an animal as an object for human gain.
If biodiversity was restored, bees have always pollinated crops. That's how bees are closely linked to the survival of humans.
Yeah.
It's not that
Where was the harm done to the bees? Is from the growing of crops and the use of sprays. It wasn't from a dairy cow or a sheep farmer.
Bees pollinating is completely different to what we do to other animals.
But there's farmers take the bees in to pollinate crops, tomatoes, stuff like that. I've seen them doing it with oilseed rape, and
you bring in
they're bringing the bees in to do a job for them.
So is that wrong, Sandra? It is, isn't it?
Well,
that's wrong. We'll get. Do you know?
If we restored biodiversity. If we restored biodiversity,
this is my point.
Adam.
This is my point, Sandra. The bees disappeared because the cereal production and vegetable production has to be so intense that people have to use sprays. Now, what I'm trying to say is every farmer in the country would love to go organic in the morning and be whistling Dixie and have real low yields. It's not going to bother him because he's getting paid well. None of this is a reality, and it's not going to happen. So we need to find a happy ground somewhere in the middle to feed people and to make sure that welfare isn't an issue. But the likes of these things that you are coming up and putting on billboards and stuff, it's sickening for a farmer to see that. And him out there doing his very best that he can.
Okay, stay there, Adam. Colette O'Connell. Colette, explain the bees thing to me, Colette.
Joe, I heard your comments that you use almond milk, and I said, "Oh, Joe, no, please."
No, soya milk. I use soya milk.
Oh, soya. I thought you said almond milk.
No, soya.
Just for your listeners to be aware.
Okay.
Honeybee colonies are used to pollinate the almond crop on the west coast of the US, and huge numbers of them are transported right across the USA.
Wow.
And this causes huge stress. They're packed into tight lorries. It causes huge stress and colony loss as a result of that. So fortunately here in Ireland we don't have that intense need for pollination. The farmers are very happy to have bees.
So are you against almond milk?
I would be, because of what it does to the bees and the honeybees, yes.
Okay, what do you think of that, Sandra? You're in favour of almond milk?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Any product that causes the use and exploitation of another animal is not acceptable.
So you're against almond milk?
Well, I don't use almond milk, but it's significantly less damaging than dairy milk.
Okay, Dennis.
Can I just address Adam's point there? The vast majority of crops that are grown to feed farmed animals, including as a result of deforestation and the use of pesticides and herbicides. In a vegan world where we're growing plants to feed humans, we'll be using very significantly less amounts of crops. We'll just be growing less. We can feed more humans on a lot less land. and the output is bigger. The output is also significantly bigger from veganic crop production.
Yeah, Adam, isn't that true? Like in the Second World, I'm thinking specifically of the UK. In the Second World War, when they were, obviously there was rationing, the first thing they got rid of was pigs, then sheep, because of the intensity, the investment return in terms of land.
Yeah.
They kept dairy cows, but they tried to keep them off the grass. They tried to feed them on powdered milk because they needed the fields for barley and for wheat and for maize and for swedes and for sugar beet, because that was a greater return. That did happen.
It did, yeah. Compulsory tillage would have been brought in.
Yeah, but doesn't that back up Sandra's point?
It does and it doesn't, Joe.
Okay.
Look, as I said before, I wouldn't be telling anyone what to eat. Each to their own, fair enough. My point is, I don't think that it's any less damaging to the environment. There's something's going to be losing. We mightn't see it as such, but there is something's going to be losing out.
Okay,
I would like to extend that invite out to Sandra.
Okay, well, Sandra, do you want to go out? Sandra, do you want to go out and work on a farm for a few weeks?
I have over 40 sheep of my own to look after here, Adam.
Yeah. But
if you have any free time, you could come and give us a hand.
Sandra, where do your sheep go at the end of the day, so to speak, metaphorically?
They live out their
I know,
their
but
lives.
what happens when they die? How do they die? Just old age?
Old age, yeah. Things like osteoarthritis.
And how does a sheep...
Is that not very wasteful, Sandra? Is that not wasteful to be doing that?
I don't think the sheep who are rescued would think that it was wasteful.
But Sandra, do you ever have to put...
No, but when she dies, do you know? You're just keeping a sheep. She's eating stuff. According to you, she's polluting the atmosphere as she's eating it, and then nothing becomes of it. It's of no benefit to anybody.
Adam, you're viewing the sheep as if they live on this earth for our well-being. Okay. They're not resources for us. Her life, just when you died, the sheep who died, her life meant something to her, quite apart from the
Sandra, what's the difference between you and the sheep?
There isn't an awful lot of difference. We share a lot of DNA.
Okay.
We're different species.
Please stay with me. I have 2 breaks. I'll come back to you after the break, I promise. Joe. Dennis Neal is Dennis. Sorry for holding you there. You are you're spokesperson for Sentient Ireland.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much for having me on. Yeah, Sentient Rights Ireland.
Okay, off you go.
Okay, so let's look at the world view first of all. At the moment, there is enough of plant protein in the world to feed an extra 4.3 billion. That's on top of the population currently in the world of around 8 billion.
Okay.
In the Amazon, it's been cleared for illegal logging, and this was rampant in the time of Bolsonaro. And then following on from that, you get ranching and monocrop production, GM, and this is to feed farmed animals. Between 30 and 80%, depending on the crop involved, goes to feed farmed animals. Most of the fish caught in the world goes to feed farmed animals. 30% of farmed fish goes to feed farmed animals. They are scooping up everything. So if we could cut that middle person out, that's the farmed animal. We're here for ethical and moral reasons, but on an economic basis, farmed animals consume more nutrients than they deliver.
Okay. What would the idea? I know all the facts of it, but what would the ideal world? What would we do with all the cattle in Ireland?
Well, it would be a transition, so it would be a lowering down from gear to gear.
Okay, sheep the same. They would eventually disappear, apart from Dublin.
No. I mean, as Sandra just told you, she has 40 sheep or 20 sheep. I forget exactly the number she said.
They're rescue sheep. They're rescue sheep. She didn't go out and buy the sheep to keep them as pets.
Well, no, not at all.
Okay.
I mean,
what about all the? We just give the fish to. Well, we're giving it to them anyway. We just give the fish to the Spanish, do we?
Don't give the fish to anybody. Leave the
Spanish
fish in the water.
The Spanish are out robbing our fish every night.
Okay, look, Joe,
have you spoken to a trawler? Have you spoken to an Irish trawler person lately?
You cannot solve this problem with national economics or national socialism. We have to look at the world view. If we look at the Irish view here, we're importing 5 million tons, mostly from Argentina and Brazil, of grain to feed our farmed animals here. And that includes the cows. There's over 300 feedlots here, so the myth of grass-fed is blown out of the water. There was recently a court case on the dairy industry.
Dennis, you eat, Sandra mentioned earlier yogurt and cheese. You eat butter and yogurt and cheese?
If there's a vegan in front of it, I eat it, Joe. There's a vegan anything available at the moment. And
so would you eat Kerrygold?
No, I wouldn't eat anything with an animal in it. I went vegan in
Where's the animal? Where's the animal in the Kerrygold? The cow is still alive. The dairy cow.
Well, Joe, they're not alive. I mean, dairy cows are killed after what they call, on average, 2.5 lactations. That means they will be impregnated, which is, you know...
Okay, so Kerrygold is gone as well. Fishing is gone.
No, there's nothing gone, Joe. We're talking about replacing it with a much better system. Micro.
But it is gone, like Dennis. That's like the Charlie Haughey line when he sacked Bobby Malloy back in the 70s, and he was asked, why did you sack Bobby Malloy? He said, I didn't sack Bobby Malloy. I just created a new cabinet of which Bobby Malloy was not a member. Barry Smith. Bobby was gone. Though he did come back. Barry Smith, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Joe.
You're listening to the debate. It's your point, please.
I'm late to the debate, but I just want to make the point. They're all talking about livestock farming in Ireland being unsustainable.
Yeah.
That lady said at the start. If you take the majority of livestock farming in Ireland is in the west of Ireland, which is in very poor ground, wet, some of it wet, some of it rocky. We're producing food from land that cannot grow grain, cannot grow anything else. You know, they're talking about feeding people. Ireland's feeding the world, not just themselves. And they're talking about all the products that go into feedlots. This thing of feedlots in Ireland is very small. The American system, where there's thousands and thousands of cattle on grain, you can't compare Ireland and the rest of the world, because the majority of Irish cattle are grass-fed cattle.
And what do you think? What do you think of Dennis's point? He wouldn't even eat Kerrygold.
Well, sure. Look at every man to himself.
Butter wouldn't melt in your mouth, Barry. I know. Okay, stay there. Where's Jason? Jason, come in from where are you? Killarney or Kilkenny? Killarney.
Down in Killarney.
Okay. You worked in an abattoir.
No, I never worked in an abattoir.
Oh, sorry.
I supplied products into some of the biggest beef plants around the country for over 20 years. So I know from when I started in the early noughties to where we are now, I would say 60% of the abattoirs locally have gone out of business.
Okay.
So what that means is that how that correlates is that basically that animals have to be transported further.
Okay.
They're spending more and more time in lots being sort of maintained in these terror areas, if you like. I mean, I'm not a fan of how animals are treated. I'll make that straight away known. Mm-hmm. But I do believe that it's a necessary evil to a certain degree. I do think that we could ameliorate it by making sort of perambulatory abattoirs where you could potentially go on site, slaughter the animals on site, and bring the animals then to a processing plant. I think then the animal basically doesn't have that panic, that transport issue, and being in a foreign area. Where
how do you think Sandra's going to react, or Dennis is going to react to that line that you're pushing there, Jason? Well, actually, things because of mass production, things have actually got more cruel.
Well, they have. I mean, that's the point of it. I mean, the driving. So
you support Sandra? You support? They trust us. We butcher them. Go vegan.
What happens is what's driving all this is our demand for fast food. We're not talking about getting rid of a roast beef on a Sunday dinner for a family, or a roast chicken in the midweek. I mean, that's how families live. What's replaced that is fast food. So us eating burgers around the world. That is what's feeding all of this issue with animal husbandry, animal care, animal welfare, veganism, oversupply of one product, all these issues are all driven, I guarantee you this, they're all driven by our demand, which again correlates with the amount of abattoirs which have closed in this country, with the demand for fast food. You look up who are the big boys in the country.
Yeah, but fast food.
Who are they supplying?
Yeah,
who are they supplying meat to?
Yeah, but why is fast food?
We no longer have a local person. We no longer have a local abattoir.
But fast food is you can get it. You can feed.
You can buy in a local
for a treat. You can feed 4 children once a week on a Happy Meal or whatever for under 20 quid. That's some going for people who are under pressure.
Absolutely, but you know where the potatoes.
And there's protein in it. Isn't there protein in meat that you can't necessarily get elsewhere?
Is it at what cost, Joe? I mean, honestly, is it at what cost? We are eating way too much. I eat a third of what I ate now 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago I went on a fasting regime thing, which I had to for health reasons, and I eat now a third of what I eat 1 meal a day, and I feel I never felt healthy in my life.
Okay. Back after this break.
Joe Duffy. Talk to Joe on 0818 715 815.
And that you agree with Sandra from Go Vegan. Why?
Why? Because I'm an animal lover for one. I did animal welfare courses. I'm a vegetarian myself, and I can't bear to see little animals suffering at all. And I love lambs and sheep.
Have you seen the ads? Have you seen the Go Butcher Me ad, or whatever it's called?
I didn't, but I heard what they said about it, yeah.
And
I mean, obviously children are very honest. They like to know the truth. Maybe I didn't see the blood everywhere, but I mean, children do like honesty. You know, when you talk to a little boy or girl, teenager, they know the truth. They know the difference between right and wrong. And so I don't think it would harm them in any way that way. But also another thing, I was going to say to you that animals have a right to live the same as we do. And to be honest with you, it's a big money racket for breeding sheep. I live down on the west coast of Ireland, and I get really depressed when I see the sheep in the field, and then they're gone by the September, all gone. They're frolicking, the little lambs, in the spring with the sheep, and the next thing I just get terribly depressed, as most people do, to see they're gone off to be slaughtered. There's no need to eat meat. The Hindus don't eat meat, and they're very healthy. And I know hundreds of vegetarians since I was a teenager in London. They're very healthy people. I don't see why people have to have lamb on the plate every Sunday.
That's the argument that's been made. I hope we've been fair as per usual. We usually get complaints after these programmes that we do on veganism. But hopefully, well, if we do, we do on this occasion.